The Senate will come to order. Leading us in prayer today is Pastor Jarvin Webb of the Capitol Commission here in Pierre. Following the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the Senate page of the day, Olivia Moffitt of Hot Springs High School.
From Psalm 86, give ear, O Yahweh, to my prayer, and give heed to the voice of my supplications. In the day of my distress I shall call upon you, for you will answer me. There is no one like you among the gods, O Lord, nor are there any works like yours. Dear Father, as we come before you this afternoon, we recognize that there is no one like you. We do marvel at your works. We recognize that you alone are sovereign and in control. It is because of who you are that we come to you. We ask for your guidance and wisdom for these legislators, that you would grant them wisdom and understanding. Please strengthen them for the work that they have to do. Give them clarity of thought and speech. May they seek to do your will. I pray that they would turn to you for help in time of need, recognizing their dependence on you. We continue to pray for Senators Beal and Duhamel. Grant them an extra measure of your grace and strength. To you be the glory. Amen.
The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, and Zickman. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Approval of the journal.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Secretary of the Senate has had under consideration the Senate Journal of the 28th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move adoption of the report. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
That has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Is the doctor of the day here? Stand up. Oh, it's the guy with the stethoscope. Help me welcome our doctor of the day. Today's doctor of the day is Samuel Lowe's, MD, a family medicine resident at the Center for Family Medicine in Pierre. Dr. Lowe's earned his medical degree from A.T. Still University, Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine, and is a member of the South Dakota State Medical Association. Let's thank him for helping us today. Communications.
Dear Mr. President and members of the Senate, pursuant to the provisions of the South Dakota codified laws and subject to your consent, I have the honor to inform you that I have reappointed Ronald Wheeler, Lawrence County Lead, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Science and Technology Authority. Sincerely, Larry Roden, Governor.
And that appointment has been referred to the Senate Committee on Commerce and Energy. Reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Commerce and Energy reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. The nomination of Lynn Evans of Pennington County, Rapid City, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Science and Technology Authority, and returns the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said appointment. The nomination of William Even of Lincoln County, T, South Dakota, to the position of Commissioner of the South Dakota Governor's Office of Economic Development, and returns the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said appointment. The nomination of Roy Lindsay Jr. of Lake County, Madison, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Lottery Commission, and returns with the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said appointment. Also, the nomination of Stephen Zelmer of Pennington County, Rapid City, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Building Authority, and returns the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said reappointment, and that the reappointment, having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. The nomination of James Breckenridge of Minnehaha County, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Building Authority, and returns the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said reappointment, and it having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. The nomination of Matt Judson of Hughes County, Pierce, South Dakota, to the Board of Economic Development, and returns the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said reappointment, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. The nomination of James Schmidt of Lincoln County, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to the Board of Economic Development, and returns the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said reappointment, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. And finally, the nomination of Joy Nelson of Cottington County, Watertown, South Dakota, to the Board of Economic Development, and returns the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said reappointment, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on consent. The Senate Committee on Commerce and Energy also had under consideration House Bills 1027 and 1045, and they recommended that all do pass, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Submitted, Casey Crabtree, Chair. Mr. President, the Joint Committee on Appropriations reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. Senate Bill 37, 69, 79, and 136 do pass. Senate Bills 174, 206, and 217 were tabled. Submitted, Ernie Otten and Mike Derby, co-chairs. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Ag and Natural Resources reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the same with the following recommendations. House Bills 1254 and 1264 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Submitted, Tom Pischke, Chair. The Committee on Senate Judiciary reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. House Bills 1066, 1126, 1164, and 1234 do pass, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1179 be amended and do pass. Respectfully submitted, Amber Hulse, Vice Chair. And finally, Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared Senate Bills 14, 21, 114, 153, and finds all correctly enrolled. And the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that Senate Bills 26 and 71 were delivered to His Excellency the Governor for his approval at 12:42 p.m. February 26, 2026. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
Members of the Senate, this time I see a former member of the Senate up there in the gallery. If you could stand up. Let's welcome former Senator Mike Valley back to the Senate. you have any questions about highway funding, you can just run up to the gallery and talk to him. Senator Crabtree.
Personal privilege, please. Thank you, sir. Well, Madison Bulldogs, why don't you stand up? I think it's a great day in the Senate when you can have those voices fill the Senate gallery for the Pledge of Allegiance, right? That's a bright future that we got today. Now, they've been writing you letters, and they're as excited to see you guys as they would be as excited they would be to see any professional athlete or movie stars. So thank you, senators, for your time working back and forth with them. This program is absolutely phenomenal. They write their own bills, they pass them, they defeat them, and together we're going to work to override Principal Guzzi's vetoes that she has had on some of these recesses. We're bringing recess back. With that, I did have a chance to ask them this earlier today, which was, what is your favorite bill that you've seen so far this year? Because they follow all of them. And they said they really like Senate Bill 116. Senate Bill 116 is the new indoor athletics facility at Dakota State University. And I got to say, I like that one too. So
Who was the sponsor of that bill?
Yeah, it turned out, it might have been me, but it was overwhelmingly approved by all of you as well. So thank you guys for that. Senators, if you would, please give these outstanding young individuals a giant round of applause.
Senator Blunt.
I was going to encourage the Madison Bulldogs to remain standing. I've made some incredible new friends today, so please stand again. Jacob wasn't able to be here, but Maya and Mikael, are you guys up there somewhere? Where's Maya? Okay, there and over here. All right. So I got 3 letters. I'm sure that you got probably more than that. I just wanted to give a quick shout out of the wisdom from a 4th grader, and he reminded me that prairie dogs are like barking dogs, and there are snakes in South Dakota. Baby buffalo are called red dogs. Bulls move the snow to get it to the grass, and the most important one for me was you should never pet a bull. Well done on that. Never pet a bull. Thank you very much.
Good advice. Messages from the House.
Mr. President, I have the honor to return Senate concurrent resolutions 605, 606, 607, and 608, in which the House has concurred. Also, I have the honor to return Senate Bills 14, 21, 114, and 153, which have passed the House without change. Also, I have the honor to transmit House Bill 1244, which has passed the House, and your favorable consideration is requested. Also, I have the honor to inform you that the House has appointed Representatives Overweg, Knowles, and Herman as a committee of 3 on the part of the House to meet with a like committee on the part of the Senate to adjust the differences of between the 2 houses on Senate Bill 3. And finally, I have the honor to return Senate Bill 111, which has been amended by the House, and your concurrence in the amendments is requested. Submitted, Pat Miller, Chief Clerk.
Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. Personal privilege? Well, they're just walking in, but I have an amazing group that I need to introduce you to. The Explorers is a young men's service club. This year, the group has 43 members who are 6th to 8th grade boys from Chamberlain Public School and St. Joseph's Indian School. Since its inception in 2001, this group has contributed over $175,000 to the Chamberlain community. to Chamberlain Schools, and to members of the community helping to fund over $825,000 in projects. Wow. This year, they are raising money to help fund restrooms for the new hiking biking trail in Chamberlain. Please stand and applaud for these amazing young men. Stand up, guys.
Welcome. Motions and resolutions.
Senator Melhoff moves that House Bills 1107 and 1194 be deferred to Monday, March 2nd, 2026, the 30th legislative day.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. That carries. Roll call. We're too late for a roll call. We can do a division. If you support it, stand.
Just need one.
I think if you support the motion, stand. If you support the motion to defer, stand. That motion carries.
We don't do it today. We don't do it today. Okay.
Consideration of committee reports. First reading of House bills.
House Bill 1244. Repeal the Special Donations Fund and make an appropriation to the Department of Education for the provision of a grant to support the Jobs for America Graduates South Dakota program.
That bill has not been assigned to committee at this time. We are up to the consent calendar.
Senator Carley requested that House Bill 1095 be removed from the consent calendar. Senator Blanc requested that House Bill 1099 be removed from the consent calendar. Senator Nelson requested that House Bill 1092 be removed from the consent calendar, and Senator Howard requested that House Bill 1193 be removed from consent. Remaining on consent today, we have House Bill 1106, revise the terms of county extension board members. 1162, add certain substances to the Schedule 1 of Controlled Substance Schedule. House Bill 1169, classify medetomidine as a Schedule 2 controlled substance and establish permissible uses. House Bill 1265, authorize the salvage of certain bird eggs.
Items on the consent calendar were reported out of committee with no dissenting votes and are not subject to debate. Only questions for clarification purposes are appropriate. There will be one vote taken for all bills on the consent calendar. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, the question before the Senate is, shall the items on the consent calendar pass? As your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard. Hulse. Jensen. Carr. Colbeck excused. Lapke. Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miskimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Zickman. Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 3 excused.
So the consent calendar items having received a majority vote of the members-elect, the consent calendar is declared passed. Any questions on the titles? Seeing none, they are deemed correct. Senator Whip. That's granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have members of the Leadership Huron class here. Please stand up if that describes you. So these leadership development programs I've done several similar ones, and they're very important to getting me involved in policy and getting me engaged. And so I commend these leaders from the Huron area for being a part of that group, and pay attention today, because someday this might be you down here. So please welcome them to the Senate.
Welcome. All right, we're on the debate calendar, second reading of Senate bills.
Senate Bill 130, an act to make an appropriation for roadway and related infrastructure improvements required because of construction activity at Ellsworth Air Force Base and to declare an emergency.
Senate Bill 130, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Duhamel.
Thank you, Mr. President. My fellow senators, I stand today in support of Senate Bill 130. It is in support of one of our state's most valuable assets, and especially with yesterday's news that the B-21s are coming to Ellsworth in 2027. Western South Dakota is the proud home of Ellsworth Air Force Base. For generations, this base and the surrounding communities have worked side by side to build a strong place to live, work, and to raise a family. This relationship has created tremendous opportunity, but with it comes responsibility. Many of us remember March 13, 2005. That's the day when Ellsworth Air Force Base was on the base closure list. We were told there was little chance of changing that decision. Still, more than 11,000 people showed up to make their voices heard. State and federal leaders stepped up, and together, against the odds, we saved our base. That moment shaped our region, and it matters today. Fast forward to 2026. Ellsworth Air Force Base is more important than ever to our national defense. It plays a key role in strategic deterrence and long-range strike capability. Ellsworth will soon be the home to the B-21 Raider stealth bomber, already home for the 28th Bomb Wing B-1B Lancers and the MQ-9 Reaper drone operations. What happens in South Dakota matters far beyond our state lines. Ellsworth Air Force Base is a major economic driver of our state. This base has an annual economic impact of nearly $900 million. It supports about 9,100 service members, civilians, and family members, and that activity translates into nearly 10,000 direct and indirect jobs. Ongoing B-21 construction projects represent more than $2 billion in investment. This is in addition to the recently completed $130 million runway. These investments are expected to generate more than $80 million in state sales and excise tax revenue. That's state revenue. Moreover, Ellsworth Air Force Base is the largest employer in western South Dakota and the second largest employer in our state. Senate Bill 130 is a straightforward and responsible step. It helps repair the roads damaged by installation-related construction. It brings them back to their original condition. Just as important, it shows that South Dakota is willing to stand behind this significant federal investment happening right now. It shows we have skin in the game. Bottom line, supporting Ellsworth Air Force Base today helps position it for future missions tomorrow. And this means more jobs, more economic opportunity, and a stronger country. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 130? Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I too rise in strong support of this bill today to invest $8 million in roadway and related infrastructure improvements connected to the construction at the base. Ellsworth, as was pointed out, is not just a military installation. It is one of the most important economic engines in the state. Today, it stands at the forefront of national defense as a future home of America's first sixth-generation bomber, the B-21 Raider. And why is it called the Raider? And I'll just look up the history of the Doolittle raid. It's fascinating, it's really interesting, but that's what ties Ellsworth, and that's why we still use the Raiders, as so many of our squadrons are on base. But anyways, it's tied to General Doolittle, who led the raid on the Japanese mainland with a squadron of B-21 bombers. So anyways, fascinating, but that's our tie to history there. But with that honor comes responsibility. During peak construction time, when they were redoing the runway, we saw as many as 200 to 250 double semi-trucks per day traveling roadways that were never designed for that volume or that weight. Heavy construction vehicles, increased workforce traffic, and expanded activity are accelerating wear and tear, creating safety concerns, and placing strain on infrastructure built for rural traffic patterns, not heavy industrial use. And my husband drives these roads every day, so he'd also really appreciate this. The $8 million appropriation to SEDETA is carefully structured and tightly focused. Funds may only be used for roadway reconstruction, widening, safety enhancements, engineering, and traffic studies directly tied to construction impacts. This is about strengthening capacity, improving safety, and protecting local taxpayers from bearing the cost alone. This bill also ensures accountability. Administrative costs are capped at 3%. Annual reporting to the Governor's Office of Economic Development, LRC, and the Department of Legislative Audit guarantees transparency. If we fail to act, local communities will shoulder the burden of infrastructure damage caused by a federal mission that benefits our entire state and nation. By stepping up now, we demonstrate that South Dakota is a reliable partner to our military, to our service members and their families, and to the federal government that is entrusting us with this historic mission. The emergency clause reflects the urgency. Construction's underway, the impacts are measurable, and the strain on our roads is happening today. Supporting this bill means supporting national security, economic growth, public safety, and South Dakota's future as the home of the first sixth-generation bomber, which is really cool. So thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 130? Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is really a great opportunity to be able to talk about Ellsworth Air Force Base. Economic impact in the billions to South Dakota. Not in the millions, in the billions to South Dakota. National security, a key role in America's defense. We make a difference. And when you talk about tourism and you talk about recognition and you talk about a great state, it's not them and they. That's not the people over in the West River. It is us. That's what we're doing today. This is South Dakota. I urge you to say yes.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 130? Senator Carley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is good for our state and our country. This is a base that protects the safety and security of our entire country and state. It helps the counties repair the roads there, and unfortunately there weren't any funds in the federal funds that were given for this, so that's why we have to help in restoring this. And I just think we all hopefully learn the principle that when you are given something and you'll always restore something back to the condition you got it when you had it in the first place. So I'd urge a support on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 130? Senator Blanc.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that we all realize that Ellsworth Air Force Base is not just your average military installation. We are grateful in South Dakota for all of our military installations, but Ellsworth it's protecting not just the state and our country. Ellsworth is going to be responsible for protecting the world with the incoming of the B-21 bombers. The question is often asked, well, why wasn't this included in the government's original funding? And well, we have to understand that it is. It is through the 2% excise tax that each of the contractors pay who have done work on the base. And this is what I want you to understand. All of us have driven on bad roads, so we understand what that's like. But as was mentioned earlier by the good senator from Pennington County, these trucks, 200, 250 a day, these are cement trucks, either hauling out the old cement from the runway that was demoed or hauling in new cement. Guess how much one of those trucks weighs? Dun, 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 dun. 70,000 pounds. What does the average car weigh that these roads were designed for? 4,000 pounds. That's why the damage is there. And the city of Box Elder and those in Pennington County and a portion of Rapid City, they're not asking to be compensated for the use of their roads. They're just asking for a fair amount to repair the roads to the same condition that they were before the construction began. So I do come in agreement with this. I encourage you for your yes vote on SB 130.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 130? Further remarks? Senator Duhamel feel the need to rebut any of that? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 130, both because of the appropriation and the emergency clause. This is a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck excused, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman. Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 3 excused.
So, Senate Bill 130 having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
Senate Bill 220, an act to authorize a comprehensive study of juvenile correctional and residential facilities to make an appropriation therefore and to declare an emergency.
Senate Bill 220, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Hone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 220, once again an act to authorize a comprehensive study of juvenile correctional and residential facilities to make an appropriation therefore and to declare an emergency. Within the past year, my knowledge has deepened on the youth care facilities in our state. Through this process, it has heightened my awareness of these children, our children in our care, and has been the motivational force for moving our juvenile correctional system forward. I don't think that any of us want our children in our care to fail. Unfortunately, the juveniles facing incarceration are making bad choices due to generational trauma, mental health, addiction issues, just to name a few. Some of these juveniles continue to reoffend. Once they turn 18, they are now tried as adults and end up in our prison system. We want these children to be happy, successful, and have integrity. If we invest in our youth, this will foster development, confidence, and the ability to contribute positively to society. In turn, they will be successful members of our society by being respectful to their family, friends, people they interact with, by going to work and paying their fair share of taxes, just like we all enjoy doing. We want them to build a better life for themselves and everyone around them. This is not just for the juveniles, but also for their families and for us. In order to do this, we need to ask, what is the best way to help our youth that are going down the wrong path? The answer is trying to figure out the best practices. We are at the perfect time to reevaluate. We don't know if we are helping our youth in the right way, but with the new Secretary of the Department of Corrections, isn't this the best time to analyze? This is what we are proposing with Senate Bill 220, to study facilities outside of the state at no fewer than 3 juvenile correctional or residential facilities, to study and learn best practices, to create a model and craft successful strategies in order to design new pathways forward. Findings from the Project Prison Reset Task Force revealed that if we keep on our current track, we will need to build another 1,500 bed facility in 10 years. Let's not build another prison facility in 10 years. Let's invest in our children now. I'm asking for your support on Senate Bill 220.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 220? Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The need is great. I mean, I thank the good senator from Minnehaha who got me started on this summer looking into juvenile justice. The need is great. I've visited 3 facilities that, in our state that are taking care of these kids right now. And in each location, again, the same theme. The need is great, but the opportunities to help are small right now. We need to take a good look at our juveniles because, like the good senator said just now, these kids are ending up in our prisons, in our adult prisons, and the cost there is great. And so before we spend another dime, I think it's very wise to go out and look to see what other states, other places are doing, so that we can make sure that when we go forward here with what we would like to do, that we have in mind, we have examples to say, hey, this is what they did, it's going well, it's going good, let's do something like this. But again, exactly, no. But what's good for South Dakota, because again, these are our kids. You know, some people say, hey, lock them up. That, you know, you can have that attitude, I think, with adults, but these are juveniles. These are children, as low as 13, 8 in some cases. These are kids, and I think they deserve better. And so I think as a state, we need to do better. So give us the opportunity, or whoever, the opportunity to go out there and see what's being done and what's working in our nation and bring that back to South Dakota. Thanks.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 220, Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I've also been involved with this group over the past year, and I support this, and I think we're going to all have to take a look at this in an even broader scheme. I mean, we're still talking about a little bit later on in life that they're going to end up, they could end up in correctional facilities, or early in life, just before they probably end up reoffending again and end up in our adult corrections. We're going to have to look at the whole system all the way through as we're doing this. But this is a good, this is a good start to figure out what we need in facilities. And I think we're going to see coming in the future that this is a place that we may have to spend some good money.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Davis.
Question for the prime sponsor.
State your question.
Why does the proposal specifically only address looking at outside of the state facilities and not look at our current juvenile system?
Senator Hohn, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I'll try. We just felt like, it's a good time right now to look outside of the state and see what other states are doing, just because we have a lot of juveniles that are reoffending. And so what are the best practices that are being done elsewhere? Maybe we are not doing the right things at our facilities within our state. And so I think it's wise to look outside of our state and just see what is being done.
Further remarks, Senator Davis?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to resist today, not because I don't think the need is great. I'm concerned about the scope of work proposed in this study. This legislature and this body has looked at juvenile justice reform in years previously, and it is an expansive issue, and I think it needs to be looked at more holistically, more comprehensively. We have governor's task force looking at justice, our justice system, and changes that need to be done, and so I'm just concerned that the scope is too narrow.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 220?
Mr. President.
Senator Hulse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I echo some of the concerns of the prior speaker. I served on the National Conference of State Legislators study for juvenile justice with many state legislators from all across the country, and we met several different times. And so while I wasn't involved in many of the discussions held here in South Dakota, it was really interesting to learn that knowledge about what other states are doing and how many other states have studies already done about the things that they do in those states. And so I'm concerned spending dollars on studies that have already been done by those other states that are already out there that we can use, and then really comprehensively look at what we're doing here, and we can take those studies instead of paying for our own study of what another state has already done. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Dybert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in opposition to this legislation. Earlier this year, we had proposed spending money on a transit study. We found that money within the DOT's budget and took care of it that way. I think this is more in line with the Department of Corrections. They could find this in their budget rather than having a special appropriations and spending more money.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Jensen.
I absolutely am in favor of this bill. I served on the Juvenile Justice Reform Oversight Council for 6 years in the House. We've had this issue for 11 years. We've had 11 years to try and figure out how to fix what we have, and we haven't. I really do think it's time to look beyond our walls, beyond our borders, because our system has had 11 years to work on this and nothing's changed. So I think it's a good idea to at least try something different and look at some outside sources. There are different programs all over the country, and I was on a committee with CSG a number of years ago on similar issues, and other states do have different programs, and I think it's worth our time to take a look. And it's, we've been talking about appropriations for $20 million here, $50 million there, $30 million there. $50,000 is really, it shouldn't be hard to find that, so thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 220, Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to yield my time back to the prime sponsor.
All right. Senator Hone in closing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, once again, what is the harm of looking outside our state and seeing what other states are doing? These are our kids. These could be the next ones in our prison. And we know that the yearly costs of an inmate are extremely high. I think the figure was $32,000 a year for one inmate. I mean, this is, the study is like peanuts compared to having these youth, our children, in our prison system forever. Let's help our kids now. They need our help. And we obviously could use some help in moving forward. And I just think that, we need to do what's right for our kids. Let's reevaluate. Let's look things over. We have a new Department of secretary for the Department of Corrections. Now is the right time to do this, and I would ask for your yes vote on 220.
Seeing no further remarks on Senate Bill 220, the question before the Senate is final passage. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. This is a 2/3 majority vote because of the appropriation and the emergency clause. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc. Carly. Crabtree. Davis. Dibert. Duhamel. Foster excused, Grove. Hone. Howard. Hulse. Jensen. Carr. Colbeck excused, Lapke. Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miss Gimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Zickman. Mr. President, we have 23 yeas, 9 nays, 3 excused.
So Senate Bill 220 having failed to receive a 2/3 majority vote of the members elect, the President declares the bill lost. Senator Hone has given her intent to reconsider.
Oh, yeah, it's, well, it does.
The calendar.
All right, the last day for a bill that came out of joint appropriations to pass off the floor is Monday. So we will take up the intent to reconsider on Monday.
Senate Bill 231, an act to create the Water Infrastructure Development Fund to provide an appropriation to provide for the awarding of grants and loans from the fund for certain rural water projects and to declare an emergency.
Senate Bill 231, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Duhamel.
Thank you, Mr. President. My fellow senators, I ask for favorable consideration of Senate Bill 231. It's about responsibility. It's about foresight. It's about whether we prepare today or force our children to scramble tomorrow. Water infrastructure does not fail all at once. It ages quietly. Pipes corrode, pumps wear out, treatment systems fall behind modern standards. When we ignore that reality, the cost does not disappear, it multiplies. This bill creates a water infrastructure development fund. In simple terms, it's a savings account for South Dakota's water future. This fund will be built from legislative appropriations, federal grants, interest earnings, and loan repayments. It will be continuously appropriated for one purpose only: construction, planning, and development of rural water projects in our state. It is structured responsibly. Grants are capped at 10% of construction costs. Loans are capped at 50%. The Board of Water and Natural Resources will establish clear criteria and oversee grants. oversee awards. This is not an open checkbook. It is disciplined, leveraged investment. The $3 million transfer in this bill is seed money. It signals that South Dakota intends to plan ahead rather than react in crisis. It allows us to leverage federal dollars, strengthen local systems, and reduce long-term costs to taxpayers. If we wait until our infrastructure fails, communities will face emergency borrowing, higher rates, and fewer options. Acting now gives us flexibility. Acting now protects affordability. Acting now ensures reliability. Clean, dependable water is not optional. It is foundational to agriculture, small towns, schools, hospitals, industry, economic growth. It's foundational to public health. Previous generations built the systems we rely on today. They did not wait for collapse. They invested with a long horizon. This bill asks us to do the same. The emergency clause recognizes urgency. Infrastructure does not pause while we debate. Federal opportunities will not wait for us to organize. Senate Bill 231 positions South Dakota to remain proactive, financially disciplined, and prepared for the next generation. This is a measured step. It is fiscally responsible, and it is necessary. On behalf of our children and grandchildren, I respectfully ask for your support.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 231, Senator Voida.
Mr. President, I would like to move 231A.
Amendment 231A has been moved and seconded. Has it been posted?
Yes.
And you'd wish to speak to it at this time?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Fellow senators, I will recognize right off the bat that this amendment is not friendly to the prime. However, I am not comfortable voting to set up yet another fund that is continuously appropriated that will only report to the legislature. This amendment would require this fund to be appropriated through the G bill. And going through the G bill, you know, one of the concerns by doing this is that it's going to turn political, but I would argue that going through the G bill will keep it less political than by requiring it to be appropriated by, say, special appropriation. That would be another option. It retains the legislative oversight, and it keeps the people's voice in the process. Abdicating the legislature's authority to appointed boards cuts the people's voice out of the process. If it is supposed to be a savings account, they can plan ahead for needs for the dollars to match the projects, and the legislature can retain its voice. I ask for your favorable consideration of the amendment.
All right, thank you. Further comments on that motion to amend, Senator Duhamel.
Thank you, Mr. President. My fellow senators, I ask you to resist the amendment. Revolving loan funds in South Dakota are continuously appropriated. Any funds that recovered through fees or loan repayment should be continuously appropriated to allow that fund to continue to function. The GF&P fund that receives and manages licensing fees is continuously appropriated. The Housing Infrastructure Finance Program that we've talked about extensively is continuously appropriated. The legislature still has oversight over the program if the funds are not being utilized or if the legislature wants to spend the funds outside the original purpose. Continuously appropriating a fund incentivizes maintenance through interest rates and repayment terms. The fund managers are less likely to implement competitive terms if there is a threat that fund is not going to be reappropriated next year. The legislature still has the ability to intervene each year. Let's keep the politics out of this. Let the water engineers and professionals handle the loan with South Dakota's best interests in mind. Please resist the amendment.
Further remarks on the motion to amend, Senator Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the good senator from Bonesteel. My question, Mr. President, is obviously this is $3 million that is going to be continuously appropriated if we don't pass the amendment. You talked about some other, both of you have talked about other funds that have been continuously appropriated. What are the amounts on some of those other funds that get continuously appropriated? Is $3 million a high amount, or is $3 million a lower amount? Can you talk to me about that?
Senator Voida, do you wish to respond?
I'll take a stab at it, I guess. Well, one fund that comes to mind would be like the Housing Infrastructure Fund. They did loans out of that. That was a pretty substantial amount of money. GF&P was mentioned. They have millions upon millions of dollars that was continuously appropriated, and I don't think those are good practices. I mean, if it was up to me, those wouldn't be continuously appropriated. So I don't know if that answers your question. And the $3 million is just the starting point. I think the plan is to tuck money into this as we can.
Further remarks, Senator Pischke.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I don't think I really got my question answered. I guess I was under the assumption here that we were going to do $3 million every year. Maybe I'm mistaken in that. If you guys want to clear that up in some of your conversation in the future on this debate, I would appreciate an answer on that.
That did sound kind of like a question. Senator Duhamel, would you like to respond to that?
I'll do my best. This is a one-time $3 million appropriation
Thank you.
this year only. Pardon me?
None. Further remarks on the motion, Senator Pischke?
Well, just to continue this, I guess the follow-up question then is what's going to be continuously appropriated next year? Do we know that? I mean, is that in this bill? If you're talking about continuously appropriated, I want to know what we're going to do next year. Or is it just whatever the legislature decides?
Senator Duhamel, you wish to respond to that?
Thank you, Mr. President. It is up to next year, a legislature, to make a call if any money goes in. So the continuously appropriating, it stays in the fund. The loans are given out and the interest comes back. It stays in the fund. It's not asking a future legislature to put more money in.
Further remarks, Senator Pischke? No. Further remarks on the motion to amend? Senator Carley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the very concept of the continuously appropriated, the confusion in that is part of why we should have this amendment. The idea behind it is that appropriations would look at it annually. And I think that's always a wise thing for a group of 18 people to look at this and to decide, hey, is this working? Some oversight, how is this going each year? And so that's why I think it's a wise idea. It clarifies some things because then we're looking at it every year. So I urge support of the amendment.
All right, thank you. Further remarks on the motion to amend? Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to urge that we resist the amendment because what we're talking about is putting $3 million towards a specific purpose, and that money to be used for that purpose, and as the money comes back, it continues to be expended for that same purpose and doesn't have to go through the appropriations process each year where sometimes things get tough, funds get swept, and if we think water is important and we want to continue to fund it, we should just put the money in and allow it to keep working and supporting these projects.
Thank you. Further remarks on the motion to amend? Any closing thoughts, Senator Voida?
I just want to point out that this bill allows for grants to go out too. I mean, it's not just loans. So having some oversight on this, in my opinion, would be very wise. Like I said, I don't think it's smart that we keep setting up funds that the legislature doesn't have control over. I mean, that is the job of us as the people's arm of the government branch, right? So I just urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is the amendment. Roll call has been requested. Is he supported? He is. This will be a roll call vote on the motion to amend. The motion is Senator Voida's motion to amend, which is 231A. This will be a roll call vote. Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc? Aye. Carley? Aye. Crabtree? No. Davis? No. Dibert? No. Duhamel? No. Foster excused, Grove? Aye. Hone? Aye. Howard? Aye. Hulse? No. Jensen? Aye. Carr? Colbeck excused. Lapke? Aye. Larson? No. Marty? Aye. Melhoff? No. Ms. Skimmons? No. Nelson? Aye. Otten? No. Perry? Pass. Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Perry? Pischke? Mr. President, we have 14 yeas, 18 nays, 3 excused.
So the motion to amend fails, and we are back on further remarks on Senate Bill 231. Senator Duhamel, do you want to offer any more? All right. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 231. Because of the appropriation and the emergency clause, this requires a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused. Blanc? Carly? Crabtree? Davis? Dibert? Duhamel? Foster, excused. Grove? Hone? Howard? Hulse? Jensen? Carr? Colbeck, excused. Lapke? Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Miss Gimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Blanc? Yep. Howard votes aye. Mr. President, we have 30 yeas, 2 nays, 3 excused.
So Senate Bill 231, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
Senate Bill 240, an act to make an appropriation for county rural access infrastructure and to declare an emergency.
Senate Bill 240, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this moment, I'd like to move Amendment 240A.
240A has been moved and seconded, and it has been posted.
Yes.
And you'd like to speak to it at this time?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So in light of the JCA's overwhelming recognition of this urgent rural infrastructure need, this amendment slightly tweaks the distribution schedule in order to get the entire appropriation out as soon as possible. By accelerating the timeline, communities can begin critical projects without any unnecessary delays and avoid issues that come with delays. So this is just a practical adjustment that honors the legislature's original intent of the fund to help deliver timely support where it's needed most, and I'd ask for you to please adopt the amendment.
All right, further remarks on the motion to amend? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. We're back on the bill. Further remarks on Senate Bill 240. Senator Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 240 appropriates $5 million in a one-time funding request to continue supporting the Rural Access Infrastructure Fund. This fund helps townships and counties repair and replace small bridges and large culverts that are critical but often too costly for local governments to manage all on their own. The legislature created RAFE in 2021 and
has invested in it since. It works because it promotes local control. Townships must contribute at least 20% of the project cost, pass an additional levy above their general levy, and the small structures must be on maintained roads. County commissioners then prioritize projects based on the local need. This isn't just about roads, it's about supporting our farmers, our ranchers, hunters, fishermen, and our EMS providers, rural families that all rely on safe roads to travel about their day. Strong rural infrastructure also helps manage water and protect property year-round. I respectfully ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 240? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 240. Because of the appropriation and the emergency clause, this bill requires a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck excused, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 31 yeas, 1 nay, 3 excused.
So, Senate Bill 240, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. Second reading of House bills.
House Bill 1046, an act to authorize the Department of Corrections to demolish the Peer Minimum Center, to make an appropriation therefore, and to declare an emergency.
House Bill 1046, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill appropriates $682,825 to the Department of Corrections and I guess somewhat to the Bureau of Administration to demolish the current minimum security prison that's located here in Pierre. We'll be opening the women's prison in Rapid City soon, making that facility no longer necessary. If anybody is familiar with it, it used to be the Law Enforcement Training Center, DCI headquarters. I worked out there back at in the early 2000s, and the building was coming apart at that time. It has a lot of structural issues with it. It needs to be taken down, and the sooner the better. So I'd appreciate your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1046? Senator Carly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I heard about this in a prose. My concern with it is the Department of Corrections budget is $157 million a year. Additionally, their juvenile budget's $16 million a year. And so looking at $700,000 to take down a building we're going to get nothing out of was a bit of a concern. And I did ask, hey, did you guys consider selling this building so that we'd actually get a net positive out of it? And they mentioned they hadn't looked at that. So anyway, I understand the concern with the building, but I was just looking at some creative methods alternatively. So be against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1046? Does anyone wish to speak for Senator Melhoff speaks a second time? Senator Melhoff.
Thank you. I would ask if the former speaker would like to make an offer.
Now's your chance. Further remarks? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1046. Because of the appropriation and the emergency clause, this bill requires a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc? Carly? Crabtree? Davis? Dybert? Duhamel? Foster excused, Grove? Hone? Howard? Hulse? Kevin Jensen? Carr? Colbeck excused, Lapke? Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Miss Gimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Mr. President, we have 30 yeas, 2 nays, 3 excused.
So House Bill 1046, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1084, an act to amend provisions pertaining to the public availability of information contained in certain records.
House Bill 1084, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you remember, last year, this body passed legislation that gave easy access to a lot of information in our statewide voter registration files. Among that information is addresses, home emails, telephone numbers, etc. In 2022, legislation was passed that protected state judges from having that information made public for obvious reasons. They deal with a certain segment of society that may hold a grudge later in life if they wind up incarcerated. And what this bill does is it extends those protections to federal judges, to police officers, and retired state judges. And it restricts access to their home addresses, their email, their home email, their telephone numbers to protect them from harassment. And as we've seen throughout the country, judges, even the Supreme Court judges, have come under attack with people showing up at their houses with bad intentions. So this is just what I would call a common sense bill that was brought by the governor's office to extend those protections to those public servants. And I'd ask for your support for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1084? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1084. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc? Carly? Crabtree? Davis? Dybert? Duhamel? Foster excused, Grove? Hone? Howard? Hulse? Jensen? Carr? Colbeck? Excused, Lapke? Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Miss Gimmons? Nelson? Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Sickman. Mr. President, we have 29 yeas, 3 nays, 3 excused.
So House Bill 1084, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1219. An act to require the provision of interpreter or translator services for parties to an administrative contested case.
House Bill 1219, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just going to share very briefly. What this is we have 3 different cases that might come before a court. Currently, the administrative cases do not allow for interpretive services. So if you are someone who speaks Lakota, for example, and you're an elder, and that is your main language, your first language, when you go into these cases, and they're very, there's a lot of pressure in these cases. If English is not your first language, then you are going to struggle because some of the words that are used do not translate from Lakota to English, English to Lakota. And so what this service would do is to provide interpreters for those whose language is not English first. There is a financial analysis that was done by someone out of appropriations that basically comes down to the fact that there are so few that go through this particular that are under administrative cases, that the cost is really, could potentially just be 0, or it will not be very high at all. And so I would just appreciate your support. It came out of judiciary with 0 opponents and everyone voting for it. So I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1219? Senator Wepf.
Thank you. I rise in support of the bill. I think any time that one of our citizens is in a proceeding where it's essentially them versus the government, I'm not comfortable with anything that puts the individual at a disadvantage in that case, and I think that this would be a positive thing for us to do to help in that regard, and so I ask that you support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1219? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1219. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck excused, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 30 yeas, 2 nays, 3 excused.
So House Bill 1219, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. And we are up to the signing of bills. The Constitution of South Dakota requires that bills be signed in open session and that their titles be read, and we have 5 to read today. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 153, an act to prohibit certain restrictions in employment contracts for community services providers. Now the President is signing Senate Bill 114, an act to provide for the publication of ballot images and the cast vote record of automatic tabulating equipment. And now the President is signing Senate Bill 21, an act to modify tax refunds for elderly persons and persons with a disability. And now the President is signing Senate Bill 14, an act to modify provisions related to the practice of pharmacy. And now the President is signing House Bill 1062, an act to revise a provision related to aggravated assault. Announcements. Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. The conference committee for Senate Bill 3 will be Monday, 15 minutes after the second chamber adjourns in room 413. There is an amendment posted for SB 3. It's Amendment D for those interested in testifying, and I'll re-announce it on Monday, but just giving people a further heads up.
Thank you. Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. There'll be no local government on Monday. No local government.
Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Appropriations will be meeting at 8 a.m. on Monday.
Senator Souter.
There'll be no transportation on Monday.
Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Health and Human Services, make sure you're aware we have 2 agendas for Monday. We will start at 7:45.
Senator Howard? No, you're just standing. Any other announcements? All right.
Senator Hulse moves that the Senate do now adjourn.
That has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.